Bonkers, you can come in now.
Hear that? Bonkers. Bonkers, the name. Get your hands out of my pants here.
Ever wonder why some TV shows seem to last forever, even after they stop being good? We've got the answers. We're diving deep into the sitcoms that refuse to say goodbye. The story of how one show's star held out for more money and nearly tanked the whole series is absolutely wild. 1. Laverne and Shirley. Spinning off from the massive success of Happy Days, the show Laverne and Shirley was an instant hit. It followed two of Fonzie's friends, Laverne DeFazio and Shirley Feeney, two single working women in 1950s Milwaukee. Their friendship, their goofy neighbors Lenny and Squiggy, and their hilarious physical comedy made the show #1 in the ratings. For 5 seasons, their lives working at the Schatz Brewery were pure sitcom gold. The chemistry between Penny Marshall as Laverne and Cindy Williams as Shirley was what made it all work. They were funny, relatable, and totally believable as best friends. But then the producers made a huge change. At the start of season 6, they moved the entire show from Milwaukee to Burbank, California. Suddenly, the bottle cappers were trying to make it in Hollywood. The change in setting was jarring, and the show lost that blue-collar charm that made it so popular. The final nail in the coffin came a couple of seasons later. Cindy Williams, the actress playing Shirley, became pregnant and had disagreements with the producers over her work schedule. Long story short, she left the show. For its final season, it was just Laverne. They tried to fill the void, but a show called Laverne and Shirley without Shirley just felt wrong. It limped to the finish line, a shadow of its former self. Losing one half of a title duo is a death sentence for a show. But what if a show was built around 3 people, and the most popular one of them was forced out? Our next show faced just that, leading to a revolving door of new roommates. 2. Three's Company. When Three's Company first aired in 1977, it was an immediate sensation. The premise was simple and a little bit daring for the time. One man, Jack Tripper, pretends to be gay so he can live in an apartment with 2 female roommates, Janet Wood and Chrissy Snow. This misunderstanding led to endless episodes of slapstick comedy, close calls, and funny situations, usually involving their nosy landlord, Mr. Roper. The show was a ratings powerhouse, and a huge part of that was the lovable, ditzy blonde character, Chrissy, played by Suzanne Summers. She was a breakout star. Here's where it all went wrong. After 4 incredibly successful seasons, Suzanne Summers asked for a major pay raise, one that would put her on equal footing with her male co-star, John Ritter. The network and producers said no. The negotiations got very ugly and public. As a result, they basically fired her. Her character was phased out, only appearing in brief phone calls at the end of episodes. They replaced her with a new, clumsy cousin named Cindy, and then later with a smart nurse named Terry. The show kept going for 3 more seasons, but the magic was gone. The new characters never quite clicked in the same way, and the plots became more and more repetitive. The heart of the show was the chemistry of the original 3, and once that was broken, it became a hollow imitation that dragged on for far too long. Replacing a beloved character is always risky. But what about a show that didn't just replace one person, but slowly got rid of the entire original family, turning a groundbreaking comedy into a completely different and much sadder show? 3. All in the Family. Josh Archie Bunker's Place. All in the Family is without a doubt one of the most important and influential shows in television history. It introduced us to the Bunker family, the loud-mouthed, prejudiced patriarch Archie Bunker, his sweet wife Edith, his progressive daughter Gloria, and her liberal husband Mike, who Archie called Meathead. For 9 seasons, the show was a cultural landmark. It was hilarious, but it also tackled serious issues in a way no sitcom had before. It was #1 in the ratings for 5 straight years, a truly amazing feat. But after 9 seasons, the actors who played Gloria and Mike left to do their own show. This was a huge blow, but the show went on. The real problem started when the series was retooled and renamed Archie Bunker's Place. This new version was set in a tavern that Archie bought. The focus shifted away from the family home. Then the unthinkable happened. Jean Stapleton, the actress who played Edith, decided to leave. The show wrote her character out by saying she had a sudden health crisis and passed away. This cast a dark cloud over the series. Archie was now a sad, grieving widower. The show that was once a vibrant, groundbreaking comedy about family arguments became a somber show about a lonely old man running a bar. It stayed on the air for 4 more seasons, but it was a completely different animal, a sad echo of the masterpiece it once was. Losing the heart of a family can destroy a show. Our next entry features another iconic 70s family, but their decline came not from sadness, but from losing the very person who held the family's wild personalities in check. 4. Good Times. As a spin-off of the sitcom Maude, which itself was a spin-off of All in the Family, Good Times had a great pedigree. The show focused on the Evans family, living in a public housing project in Chicago. It was praised for being one of the first sitcoms to feature a 2-parent black family. James and Florida Evans were raising their 3 kids, JJ, Thelma, and Michael, trying to make the best of their tough situation. The show mixed comedy with serious stories about poverty and struggle. In the early seasons, the heart of the show was the strong, principled father, James Evans, played by John Amos. The show, however, had a breakout star in Jimmy Walker, who played the oldest son, JJ. His goofy antics and his catchphrase, "Dynamite," became a national sensation. The writers started focusing more and more on JJ's silly comedy, which bothered the other actors, especially John Amos. He felt the show was moving away from its realistic roots and becoming a cartoon. His public disagreements with the producers led to him being let go from the show after season 3. They wrote his character out by saying he found a new job in Mississippi and later had an accident. Without the strong father figure, the show lost its anchor. It became all about JJ's comedy, and while it remained popular for a few more years, it never regained the depth and realism of its early seasons. Losing a father figure changed the entire dynamic of that show. But what if a show lost its main star, the one whose name was in the title, and then tried to keep going anyway? That's exactly what happened to our next sitcom. 5. Welcome Back, Kotter. Welcome back, your dreams were your ticket out. That theme song is pure 70s nostalgia. Welcome Back, Kotter was a huge hit based on the real-life experiences of comedian Gabe Kaplan. He played Gabe Kotter, a teacher who returns to his tough Brooklyn high school to teach a group of wisecracking, underachieving students known as the Sweat Hogs. The Sweat Hogs, including Vinnie Barbarino, Freddie Boom Boom Washington, Juan Epstein, and Arnold Horshack, were the heart of the show. And one of them, Vinnie Barbarino, played by a young John Travolta, became a massive superstar. The show was a top-rated hit for its first 3 seasons. The chemistry between Kotter and his students was perfect. But then, things fell apart. John Travolta's movie career exploded with Saturday Night Fever and Grease, and he wanted to move on. He appeared in fewer and fewer episodes in the 4th season. At the same time, Gabe Kaplan, the show's main star and creator, also got into contract disputes with the producers. As a result, he also barely appeared in the final season. So, a show called Welcome Back, Kotter had almost no Kotter and very little Barbarino. They tried to fill the void by introducing a new female sweat hog named Bambi and making Kotter's wife the main teacher. It was a disaster. The show was canceled after that 4th season, a hollowed-out shell of the hit it once was. A show about a teacher with no teacher is bad enough. But our next show had a similar problem, where real-life disputes between the young stars caused the entire project to grind to a halt, ending on a sour note. 6. What's Happening? Inspired by the classic movie Cooley High, the sitcom What's Happening followed the adventures of three black teenagers in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles: the smart and sensible Raj, the goofy and always in a scheme Rerun, and their shy friend Dwayne. The show was full of laughs, with Raj's little sister Dee being a constant source of funny insults, and the waitress Shirley at their local diner keeping them in line. The show was a solid hit, especially thanks to the physical comedy of Fred Berry, who played the overweight, red beret-wearing Rerun. He was the show's breakout character, known for his incredible dance moves. However, as the show went into its third season, its popularity started to cause problems. The cast, especially Fred Berry, felt they weren't being paid what they were worth. They decided to hold out for more money and better conditions. This led to a very public and messy dispute. The network and producers refused to give in. For one episode, they even tried to replace the main cast with lookalikes, which was a total failure. The conflict soured the whole atmosphere of the show. The cast eventually came back, but the damage was done. The writing quality declined, and the show was canceled at the end of its third season, ending not with a bang, but with a whimper of backstage drama. It left such a bad taste that it's amazing they even tried to bring it back for a sequel series years later. Money disputes can certainly wreck a show, but sometimes a show just slowly fades away, stretching a simple premise over so many years that the audience forgets why they started watching in the first place, which is exactly what happened to our next entry. 7. Alice, based on the award-winning Martin Scorsese film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. The sitcom Alice had a promising start. It told the story of Alice Hyatt, a widowed mother who moves with her son to Phoenix to chase her dream of being a singer. To make ends meet, she takes a job as a waitress at Mel's Diner. The comedy came from her interactions with her fellow waitresses, the cynical and wisecracking Flo, and the clumsy Vera, and their grumpy boss, Mel. The show's catchphrase, "Kiss my grits," shouted by Flo, became a national phenomenon. For its first few years, the show was a reliable top 20 hit. The problem with Alice was not a big dramatic blow-up, but a slow, steady decline. After 4 seasons, Polly Holliday, the actress who played Flo, left for her own spin-off show. She was replaced by a new waitress, a country girl named Belle, and then later by another waitress named Jolene. While the new actresses were fine, they never quite captured the same fiery chemistry that Flo had with the group. More importantly, the show's premise was just too thin to last for 9 seasons. How many times can you watch them drop a tray of food or get into a silly argument at the diner? The main plot of Alice trying to become a singer barely moved forward. The show became comfortable and predictable, churning out the same kinds of stories year after year until people just stopped caring. It was a show that stayed on the menu long after it had lost its flavor. A show set in one small diner can feel trapped. But what if your show was set on a giant cruise ship with new guest stars every week? Surely that couldn't get old, right? Wrong. 8. The Love Boat. All aboard for our next entry, a show with one of the catchiest theme songs of all time. The Love Boat promised something for everyone. Each week, a new batch of famous guest stars would board the Pacific Princess cruise ship to find romance and adventure. The stories were guided by the ship's crew, including the friendly Captain Steubing, the smooth bartender Isaac, the cheerful cruise director Julie, and the ship's doctor, Doc. The formula was simple and, for a time, incredibly effective. People loved seeing their favorite stars from other shows and movies in light, romantic comedy plots. The show was a massive Saturday night hit for ABC for years. But here's the thing about a formula. It gets old. After a few seasons, the stories started to feel exactly the same. You could predict who would fall in love, who would have a misunderstanding, and how it would all be happily resolved by the time the ship docked. The show ran for an astonishing 9 seasons and over 250 episodes. Towards the end, they were running out of guest stars and story ideas. The plots got more and more outlandish to try and keep things fresh. It became a parody of itself. What started as a fun, escapist fantasy turned into a tired, repetitive journey that viewers were ready to abandon long before its final voyage. 9. Mork and Mindy Nanu. Nanu, Mork and Mindy, a spin-off from an episode of Happy Days, was a phenomenon when it debuted in 1978. It starred the brilliant manic comedian Robin Williams as Mork, an alien from the planet Ork who comes to Earth in an egg-shaped spaceship. He moves in with a kind young woman named Mindy McConnell, and the show was all about his hilarious attempts to understand human customs. Robin Williams' incredible improvisational skills made the show a must-see. It shot to the top of the ratings and made him a household name. The first season was pure comedic chaos and joy. Then came season 2. The network executives, for reasons no one can understand, decided the show needed to be more serious and educational. They fired most of the supporting cast, including Mindy's father and grandmother. They tried to tone down Mork's alien zaniness and focus more on grounded emotional stories. It was a complete and total disaster. Fans hated it. The ratings plummeted. The show lost all of the anarchic energy that made it special. Realizing their mistake, the producers tried to fix it in season 3, bringing back some of the old tone. In season 4, they made the desperate move of having Mork and Mindy get married and have a baby, who was played by an elderly man because Orkin babies age backward. It was too little, too late. The damage was done in that terrible second season, a classic example of network meddling that ruined a perfectly good show. Trying to make a zany show serious is a recipe for failure, but some shows start with a serious premise and then get derailed by real-world issues, like the family sitcom we're looking at next. 10. One Day at a Time. One Day at a Time was a groundbreaking show when it premiered in 1975. It was one of the first series to center on a divorced woman, Anne Romano, who was raising her 2 teenage daughters, Julie and Barbara, on her own. The show, developed by the legendary Norman Lear, was praised for its realistic portrayal of the struggles and triumphs of a single-parent household. It tackled serious topics like independence, dating after divorce, and raising kids, all with a healthy dose of humor, much of it supplied by their quirky building superintendent, Schneider. The show was a top-rated hit for most of its run. The series lasted for 9 long seasons. The problem was that as the daughters grew up, the show's original premise started to fade. The older daughter, Julie, got married and left the show. The younger daughter, Barbara, also got married. Anne eventually remarried as well. The show was no longer about a single mom raising her kids. To fill the void, they brought in new characters, like Anne's niece and her new husband's son. But the focus of the show became blurry. It had lost its central driving force. While it always remained a decent show, those later seasons lacked the spark and relevance of the early years. It slowly morphed from a groundbreaking series into a standard, comfortable family sitcom that had simply been on the air for a few years too many. A show about a single mom is tough to sustain when she's no longer single. Our next show was a spin-off about a single dad, a butler to be exact, whose story was stretched out over 7 seasons until it reached a truly unbelievable conclusion. 11. Benson. Spinning off from the chaotic and controversial sitcom Soap, the character of Benson Dubois was a fan favorite. He was the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense butler who was always the smartest person in the room. His spin-off Benson placed him in a new setting. He became the head of household affairs for the widowed and goofy governor Eugene Gatling and his young daughter, Katie. The show was an instant success thanks to the amazing talent of Robert Guillaume as Benson. His witty comebacks and his slow-burn friendship with the German cook, Gretchen Krauss, were highlights. The show was a solid performer for 7 seasons. Benson slowly worked his way up the political ladder, moving from head of household to state budget director and then to lieutenant governor. The show was always pleasant and funny, but by the 7th season, it was running out of steam. The plots were getting thin, and it felt like it had reached its natural end. But the show went out with one of the most bizarre and unsatisfying series finales ever. In the final episode, Benson is running against his old boss, Governor Gatling, for governor. The two sit down to watch the election results on TV. As the news anchor is about to announce the winner, the screen freezes, and the credits roll. That's it. We never find out who won. It was a strange, abrupt ending to a show that had probably already overstayed its welcome by a season or two. Ending on a cliffhanger you never resolve is a terrible way to go. But what about a show that had a perfect, happy ending and then came back to undo it all, leaving fans angry and confused? 12. Rhoda, another spin-off from a TV giant, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Rhoda followed Mary's best friend, Rhoda Morgenstern, as she moved back to her hometown of New York City. The show was a monster hit right out of the gate. In the first season, Rhoda meets a man named Joe, falls in love, and gets married. The wedding episode was a massive television event, one of the most watched episodes of any show in the 1970s. It felt like the perfect happy ending for a character viewers had loved for years. The show was on top of the world. So what did the producers do for an encore? They broke them up. In Season 3, Rhoda and Joe separated, and by Season 4, they were divorced. The producers thought that putting Rhoda back into the world of dating would create more story opportunities. They were wrong. Viewers were furious. They had invested in this couple, and they felt cheated. The show's entire tone shifted from a happy romantic comedy to a somewhat sad show about a woman starting over again. The ratings took a nosedive. They tried to recapture the old magic, but it was gone. The decision to undo the happy ending was a fatal mistake that killed the show's momentum and left it limping along until it was finally put out of its misery after 5 seasons. It should have ended with the wedding. Divorcing your main couple is a risky move. But it's not as risky as getting rid of your main family's patriarch, as our next show discovered in the most painful way possible. 13. Sanford and Son. Sanford and Son was a cultural force in the 1970s. Based on a British sitcom, it starred legendary comedian Red Fox as Fred G. Sanford, a cranky, scheming old junk dealer in Watts, and Demon Wilson as his long-suffering son, Lamont. Fred's constant fake heart attacks, where he would clutch his chest and yell, "It's the big one, Elizabeth! I'm coming to join you!" Logos were iconic. The chemistry between the two leads and the hilarious supporting cast, like Aunt Esther, made the show a top 10 hit for its entire 6-season run. But behind the scenes, Red Fox was unhappy. He felt he wasn't being paid enough or given the creative respect he deserved as the show's massive star. So, after the 6th season, he quit the show to host his own variety program on a different network. The producers made the baffling decision to try and continue the world of Sanford and Son without Sanford or his son, who also declined to return. They created a new show called The Sanford Arms, which focused on the other characters who lived in the rooming house next door. It was an absolute catastrophe, widely considered one of the worst spin-offs of all time. It was canceled after only 4 episodes. It proved that the original show was all about Fred Sanford, and without him, there was nothing left. Creating a spin-off without the main star is a disaster. But what about a show that kept its star but became so preachy and serious that it alienated a huge chunk of its audience? That's the strange story of our next entry. 14. Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis? That catchphrase, delivered by the adorable Gary Coleman, made Different Strokes a household name. The show, which premiered in 1978, had a very sweet premise. A wealthy white widower, Philip Drummond, adopts the 2 young black sons of his late housekeeper, Arnold and Willis Jackson. The comedy came from the culture clash and the challenges of this new, blended family. The show was a huge hit, turning its young stars, especially Gary Coleman, into massive celebrities. The early seasons were full of heart and genuine laughs. As the show went on, however, it took a sharp turn. It became famous, or perhaps infamous, for its very special episodes. These were episodes that stopped the comedy to deal with incredibly serious and dark topics. While some were handled well, many were clumsy, heavy-handed, and frankly, just plain uncomfortable to watch in a sitcom format. The show's tone became inconsistent and often depressing. At the same time, the young actors were growing up, and the cute kid dynamic that made the show work was gone. The show moved from its original network, NBC, to ABC for its final season, a sure sign that it was on its last legs. It had strayed so far from its original lighthearted concept that its end was a mercy. Our next show was about a band pretending to be a family, and their one-note gimmick got old really, really fast. 15. The Partridge Family. Let's get groovy and hop on the bus with the Partridge Family. This show was a massive hit in the early 70s, capitalizing on the popularity of bubblegum pop music. It was about a widowed mom, Shirley, and her 5 kids who form a rock band and tour the country. The show featured catchy original songs, and the oldest son, Keith Partridge, played by David Cassidy, became the biggest teen idol on the planet. The show was light, fun, and had a great feel-good vibe. For the first couple of seasons, it was a perfect slice of pop culture fluff. But how many stories can you tell about a family band driving from one gig to another? As it turns out, not that many. After a while, every episode started to feel the same. The band would have a concert, one of the kids would have a minor problem, like a crush or a misunderstanding. Their grumpy manager Reuben Kincaid would complain, and everything would be solved by the end of the episode, usually with a song. The formula became incredibly repetitive. The show never evolved or tried anything new. By the 4th season, the ratings had dropped, the hit songs had dried up, and the whole concept just felt tired and dated. It was a groovy ride while it lasted, but it definitely stayed on the road for a tour or two too long. A family band that runs out of hits is a sad story. But our final entry is maybe the most spectacular flameout of all. A show that was the #1 comedy in America, only to see its star leave and the entire franchise crumble into dust. 16. The Jeffersons Movin' On Up. As a spin-off of All in the Family, The Jeffersons was a groundbreaking and wildly successful sitcom. It followed George and Louise Wheezy Jefferson, a black couple who become rich from their dry cleaning business and move from Queens to a deluxe apartment on Manhattan's East Side. The comedy came from George's arrogant and hot-headed personality clashing with their wealthy neighbors and the calming influence of his wise and patient wife, Wheezy. The show was a ratings giant for years, praised for its sharp writing and fantastic cast, including the hilarious and sassy maid, Florence. The show ran for an incredible 11 seasons, and that was the problem. Very few shows can maintain their quality for that long. By the later seasons, the characters had become caricatures of themselves. George was angrier, Wheezy was more patient, and the plots were recycled over and over again. They lost key characters like their son, Lionel. The show felt like it was running on fumes, a comfortable habit for viewers rather than an exciting comedy. The final insult came when the network canceled the show abruptly without filming a proper finale. Sherman Hemsley, the actor who played George, said he found out the show was over by reading it in the newspaper. It was a sad and unceremonious end for a show that had once been on top of the world, but had stayed at the party for far, far too long.